Hello and welcome to The Resourceful Woman. Today I am going to show you how I made crocheted bunting. This is something I literally just whipped this up in a weekend. I was hanging out with my good friend Emily. Hi Emily! And on rainy days and the weekends we like to just sit and watch TV and do a bit of crochet or knitting or this or that kind of crafty stuff. I realized that I had a bunch of leftover yarn from this shawl that I made for my daughter quite a ways back. I had knitted this over the course of months, a year, I can't even remember. And all of the little kind of end pieces that I cut off in order to make the rows even, I had stashed away in my yarn stash. I needed to do something with them, and so I decided to make this little bit of bunting that she can put in a room that can match the shawl that is already there. This is such a quick and easy project. It is perfect for anyone who is a total beginner at crochet. I promise you this is just the easiest thing. You only really need to know one stitch, double crochet. You use double crochet for everything. And yeah, it's just perfect that way. So yeah, I'm just going to basically demonstrate for you how to do one of these triangles and then show you the other things that you'll need to do in order to make a full set of bunting. So let's get started. To get started, here are all of the little things that you're going to need. You're going to need some yarn in whatever color you want to be using. It really doesn't matter massively which size or weight of yarn you use. It's going to make a difference in kind of how it comes out, but honestly, experiment with different, like these are two different thicknesses and they're fine. You can totally use this is a great project to use for scraps when you have lots of different kinds of yarn that you need to use up. I made most of this using a size 4mm crochet hook, which actually snapped at the very end on the very last triangle that I did. So then I had to switch to I normally used a 4.5mm to finish, and then I'll show you where I actually also sized down to a 3.5mm as well when I was doing the finishing. But honestly, a 4mm is just fine to get you through the whole thing. You'll need a yarn needle to just for kind of tidying away the ends when you have kind of like loose ends and you need to tuck them in. You can use a yarn needle to do that, and you just need scissors to cut your yarn on various times. Really, you can do the whole thing with even one kind of yarn and one crochet hook. This is very simple. Okay, now I am making this for absolute beginners, which means if you've done some crochet before, some of this might seem a little bit slow and tedious for you. But just in case you're somebody who has never crocheted a thing in your life, I'm going to start with the very simple at the beginning. To start out, you make a slip knot, which means you cross your yarn over like so, and then just pull it through like that. And that is how I start all of my knitting and crochet projects. I do it just a little bit loose on the hook there, and that's all you need to get going. Now for the first row, all you need to do is chain 2, which means you yarn over and pull it through, and then yarn over and pull it through again. Now you've made 2 little chains, and then you go back through the middle of the first chain, yarn over, pull it through that, and then you see you've got 2 loops now on your crochet hook, and you yarn over and pull it through both of those. Ta-da! That is your double crochet stitch. That is as simple as can be. Now you with each row you kind of flip it over, which is sort of funny to say on a thing like this when it's just this tiny little knot of yarn at the moment, but I always try to position it so that I have my crochet hook in my dominant hand, my right hand, and with my left hand I am holding the end where that first slip knot was, and I'm also using my left index finger to create tension on the loose end of the yarn. And this is going to eventually form a triangle. So we're kind of thinking about that shape as we're going forward. So the second row is a, make a little chain one, and then you go into, let's see if I can show you this. You see the knot that was made, or the stitch that was made by the double crochet. You go through both pieces of that, and what you're going to do is double crochet 3 times in that spot, in that one spot. So you're taking it from being 1 stitch to being 3 stitches wide. So you do that once, go right into the same hole, twice, right into the same hole again, thrice. And that is your second row. Now, get this back to where it needs to be. So we've got the bottom with the original slip stitch, and we've got our yarn here on the left hand, and now we're going to chain once. Every row is going to start with 1 chain, and then those 3 stitches you just did, you're just going to double crochet again into each one of those stitches just once this time. Sorry, I sometimes keep getting out of shot because I'm looking at it closely. Into the first one. Into the second one. Whoop. Into the third one. Boom. So now you've just done 3 across, and now you're going to chain once, and you're going to add a stitch at both ends. So in the first time that you double crochet, you're going to do that twice in the same spot, and then when you get to the opposite end, you're going to double crochet twice in the last spot. So in this particular row, like that, and then we go into our first stitch and double crochet twice. And then we double crochet in each stitch going across until you get to the last one. In this case, it's double crochet twice in the first one, then double crochet, and then double crochet twice in the last stitch. Come on. Okay, so now you have 5 stitches going across, just like that. And so now in each alternating row, what you're going to do in the rows where you're not increasing, you just chain once and double crochet all the way across. And then in the rows where you are increasing, you chain once, you double crochet twice, into the first and last stitches and double crochet all the way across. So you add a stitch at each end in every other row. Come on, that one didn't go through. There we go. And I do find after you've done an increase row, for whatever reason, the last stitch on the not increasing row is always a bit tight and a bit fiddly to get through. And I was having this with every single one of those triangles that I was making a few days ago. That's okay. See, and you can see that our little triangle here is starting to form. So now this is going to be an increase row, and I'm just going to carry on doing this until I have my triangle at my preferred size. Now, the original pattern that I looked at said to just keep doing this until it was 25 stitches across, which is fine. That's if you really like to go exactly by the book, then do that. I kind of decided, especially because I was doing this as a project with leftover yarn scraps, and I wasn't really sure that I had a whole lot to work with. And it turns out I didn't. I really did use up every last centimeter of it, basically. That I didn't want to, necessarily make the triangles too big, because then I wouldn't have enough to make a whole row of bunting. So I made mine a little bit smaller. I didn't actually even count how many stitches I did across. So I couldn't even tell you, but I think this is such a forgiving project that you really can just do it by feel. When I was going from one triangle to the next, I would just lay one on top of the other to see if they were about roughly the same size. And even then, I made a few a little bit bigger and a few a little bit smaller, just because I like the kind of unevenness. I like not having everything all uniformly one color or one size. So that was my personal preference. Okay, now I'm starting a row where I'm just going to go straight across. So this is a fantastic project to learn on if you, say if you have children and you want to give them a good rainy day project to do. This is fantastic because it's a great way to learn just the basics, because it is really just one stitch and one hook and nothing particularly difficult, and it really takes no time at all as well. So sometimes with projects like with knitting, I can sometimes take months, and so there's not a whole lot of payoff because you're just sort of slogging away at this thing, night after night in front of the television, or whenever you happen to find the time to do a bit of knitting. And I actually will do things like, I'll start knitting a jumper in winter, and by the time I get it finished, it's summer and it's too hot to wear it. So there's no real payoff there. But like I said, this is the kind of thing that even working on it casually for a few hours, you can make the whole thing. Okay, so you can go obviously much bigger than this, but I'm just going to go with this size for now, just because I'm just demonstrating how to make these things. So to finish this off, I'm just going to pull it through the last loop, and then I'm going to take each of these ends and run them through with the knitting needle. it through like that. And I just have to cut off those ends. And I have a nice, clean little triangle to work with. Oops, little bits of fluff. So there's that. And then how do we string these together? Well, you can take a same color or a contrasting color. I'm going to do a contrasting color here. Now this is in a slightly bigger yarn than this one. I can't remember what we call these. Fine, super fine. This is not super fine. I think this is fine. And this is maybe regular or chunky. Maybe I'll look that up in a minute. But yeah, this is a slightly thicker yarn. Just did my little slip knot again. Tighten it up like that. Now to start off to do the kind of the bunting ribbon, as it were, you just chain a bunch of times depending on how long you want to make it. So we just yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all the way along. So I could make this much longer, but this is really just for demonstration purposes. So I've got a little chain there, and then what do? I go through the top. You're like, oh no, it's a triangle, which is the top? Well, the top is, you can see the direction that the rows go, and so the top is the longest one that goes in that direction. And you just find the end of one, and you double crochet it. See, once again, it's just the same old stitch. As I said, you can do the whole thing with the one hook. What happened when I made the purple ones, and my one 4mm hook broke, I was using this larger one because I thought it worked a little bit better with the thicker yarn to make the chain. And then when I got to actually attaching it to the triangles, I realized that this hook was just a little bit too tight going into the stitches that I had made with a slightly smaller hook. So I would actually switch down each time I added a new triangle. I would just use the 3.5mm when I was going across like this, and then once I got to the other end, I would switch back to the 4.5mm to make the slightly bigger chain. But I mean, that was just because my hook had broken, and it's actually much simpler and easier if you just start as you mean to go on and make the whole thing uniform with one hook. And here, when you get to the end here, you just go back to chaining. Chain. I found doing about like 6 to 8 in between each triangle kind of worked well for me. You could do 10. Obviously how much you chain is going to make a difference to how it looks once you've kind of strung them all together. So what you can do is experiment, you know, chain across and then add one, and then do that with a few, and then look at it and say, oh, you know, is this how I want it to come out? Does it look like they're too far apart? Does it look like they're too close together? That kind of thing, because this is a really, really easy thing to just boop, 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 go back and fix if you don't like it and if you want to make it a little bit different. And again, I really strongly encourage this for anyone who you know, has never really done crochet before, or they have done crochet but it's been a long time or everything, just to get you into the swing of things. This can make a terrific gift. It makes a nice little decoration. yeah, you can, you know, just really do a lot with this. And like I said, it's great because it's a wonderful way to use up your scrap yarn if you happen to have some. And you know, you can use lots of different colors. What I did with the other bunting that I made was I made little stripes, so I would sometimes change the color and do a couple of rows and then change the color again and do a couple of rows, all because I just had these small pieces of scrap yarn that there weren't enough to make an entire triangle out of. So that worked out really well. So here you go. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments if you try out and make some bunting of your own, and I'll see you next time.